started.
Welcome to the beautiful town of Turku. Today we are heading to the island of Seili. It's called Själö in Swedish, so therefore the Finnish name Seili. The original name, the Swedish one, means the island of seals. And this is the ferry boat we're going to be taking. It's going to take us 1.5 hours to get there. The island of Seili has been a kind of a hospital island for a very long time. It used to be a hospital island for leprosy patients since 1600s, and hospital in a quotation marks because the treatment that they got was hard liquor and the word of God, and that's how you treated leprosy back in the days. So really no actual treatment was available. Also, there has been a mental institute on the island all the way to the 1960s, and especially during the 1900s it was a mental institute for women. And back in the days also, the treatment of mental illnesses wasn't like today, and was considered as a patient with a mental illness was very different from today's standards. So women living life not in conventional setting were seen as mental patients, homeless people, and also of course people with actual mental illnesses, but lots of people who just were not conventionally considered as good people. This is the church of the island, and behind is a graveyard. This part of the island used to be separate from the main island, so this was where the patients with leprosy would stay. But after the ground has been elevating, this part of the island is now connected to the main island. these here are memorial crosses, so the actual graves might not be in these locations, but this gravesite is still in active use, so there are a few newer graves on that side as well. This here is the main building of the mental institute. There was roughly from 10 to 15 patients at a time in here, and the idea was basically that if you got here, you didn't get away. So if you were sentenced into the mental institution in Seili, it was for life. There is this one hospital room that has preserved. This square design and colors are supposed to calm down a patient. I find it rather disturbing. There are 3 nature trails on the island. So the shortest one is here. Here's where the church is. And then there is 2 longer ones. So this one and this one in the south. Here is the main building and here is the ferry dock. As you see, you can take your bike with the ferry to here. If you have seen my videos of the Saariston Rengastie, the archipelago ringway, the island of Seili is actually quite in the middle of that circle. And we are heading to the western trail of the island of Seili. It's 1.7 kilometers, so roughly a mile. The trail seems to be marked with those yellow tags. In some places better than in others. When the Mental Institute quit in 1962, the Helsinki University took over, and now the island is mostly a research area for biology, marine biology. They, for example, do research on tick-borne illnesses, so if you come to the island of Seili, you need to check yourself regarding the ticks in the evening, because you don't want to end up being a research subject in that sense. Now we are heading to the more greener pastures. There are cows on the island, mainly for landscaping. We found this strange little establishment from the woods. We expect it to be a hiding place for hunters because of those tall windows. They do hunt deer with an arrow and bow in order not to cause too much sound from shooting a gun. I mentioned about the mental illnesses being treated with hard liquor. And the truth is that the patients were allowed to make moonshine for their own use. And, well, they started to sell that moonshine to sailors who were passing by the island. And for that reason, the word Seili in Finnish language is nowadays an euphemism of being drunk. So if someone is in Seili, olla Seilissä, they are very drunk. And for that reason, well, at some point the patients of the mental institute were not allowed to make their own moonshine anymore. Seems like hiking is not the number one activity on this island. We have seen one couple hiking this trail, but there are lots of people on the island though. And although the trail is marked with those yellow diamonds, there are lots of them in the places where you don't really need them, where the trail is nice and straight. But then in the places when there are intersections of the trails, you don't quite often know where to go. We have twice missed the trail and had to find our way back. Not that it's a big of an issue on a short leg trail like this, but anyway, I think those would be the important places to use those yellow diamonds. But otherwise, easy hiking and nice forest. Once again, not your average forest furniture. I guess this is something related to the research. We are returning to the ferry dock in order to travel back to Turku. But this is not our ferry, this is a huge ferry. The return tickets from Turku were 43 euros from adults